Chapter 26, Digestive System, Part 2, Screencast 2. Now, this screencast will be focusing on the accessory digestive organs that are found in the lower GI. They will be the liver, the pancreas, and the gallbladder. The image we see here is actually of something that quite often is referred to as the biliary system. What you do not see is the liver, but you do see the hepatic ducts. But what I want to point out here is everything is funneling its way into the duodenum of the small intestine. We have the gallbladder, which actually stores and concentrates bile. We see bile, which will be making its way to the duodenum from the liver. And we also see the pancreas, and we will be focusing primarily on the exocrine pancreas in this screencast. Now, if we look at the liver, it is an accessory digestive organ, and it is also the largest internal organ. It is found in the right upper quadrant of the abdomen, and if you go to the bottom of your right rib cage, you can actually palpate and feel the liver extending beyond the ribs. Now, this is where I beg to differ with how our textbook refers to the primary function of the liver. It refers to the primary function of the liver as producing bile. I beg to differ. If we look at everything else that the liver does, looking at the role it plays in energetics, producing plasma proteins, there's way more stuff going on in the liver beyond the production of bile. I will agree that the production of the bile is the primary digestive function of the liver. Now, the liver, as we'll see, is partially divided into 4 lobes and 2 ligaments. The right lobe is larger than the left lobe. Right and left lobes are separated by what we saw previously as the falciform ligament. There are quadrate and caudate lobes, and these are subdivisions of the right lobe. The caudate is adjacent to the inferior vena cava, and the quadrate is adjacent to the gallbladder. Here we basically see the 2 primary lobes that are separated by the falciform ligament. We can see the gallbladder, which is in the inferior portion of the liver. Here we basically get a better idea of the remaining lobes from the posterior and inferior view of the liver itself. Now, if we address the histology of the liver, there are branches of connective tissue capsules throughout the organ. And what this does, this actually forms septa or hepatic lobules. And the structural and functional unit of the liver are hepatocytes. We will see portal triads, and they are at the periphery of each lobule. There is a central vein, and this central vein is at the center of each lobule, and it drains blood from each lobule, and it will eventually, and they merge to form hepatic veins. Now, the hepatic artery, that is a branch of the celiac trunk, and it is basically bringing oxygenated blood to the liver. Now, what is important is what we refer to as the hepatic portal vein. This is carrying deoxygenated but high nutrient blood from the capillary beds of the GI tract, spleen, and pancreas, and making its way to the liver. Then we have the hepatic veins, and they empty into the inferior vena cava. Now, bile is secreted by the liver, and bile primarily is an emulsifier. It is made up of water, bicarbonate ions, bile salts, and pigments, cholesterol, lecithin, and mucin. Now, you may be familiar with lecithin as it appears as an ingredient on many salad dressings, and it actually is an emulsifier. And that is what bile acts as primarily. Bile salts and lecithin help mechanically digest lipids. Please note, bile does not chemically digest lipids, which means it does not break triglycerides into the glycerol backbone and free fatty acids. It is an emulsifier, and it just rearranges the polar tails so that lipase can actually digest lipid. Now, a disease that you might be familiar with is cirrhosis of the liver, and this is a condition that occurs when hepatocytes are actually replaced by fibrous scar tissue. what ends up happening is this compresses the blood vessels. And this results in what's known as hepatic portal hypertension. And this actually compresses the bile ducts within the liver. And this is due to chronic injury to the hepatocytes. Usually we think of this due to chronic alcoholism, but it could be due to liver disease, drugs, or toxins. Most frequently, viral infections from hepatitis B or C. Now, the symptoms associated with cirrhosis are fatigue, weight loss, nausea, and also pain in the right upper quadrant. Now, in advanced conditions, you'll see jaundice, edema, ascites, itching, the accumulation of toxins, and dilated veins of the esophagus. Now, keep in mind, jaundice is a yellowing of the skin and eyes, and this is a classic symptom of severe liver disease. If we think about the swelling, remember, if the liver is impacted, you're no longer producing plasma proteins, and this is going to result in excess filtration taking place at the capillary level, resulting in significant accumulation of fluid in the interstitial space. And there is our edema. And it is specific to the abdominal cavity or area, and this is the ascites. Now, the gallbladder, this is a sac-like organ that is attached to the inferior surface of the liver. What the gallbladder does is store, concentrate, and release bile that is produced in the liver. So keep in mind the gallbladder does not produce bile. It only stores and concentrates it. This has three tunics, an inner mucosa, a middle muscularis, and an external serosa. Now, the mucosa has folds that actually allow the distension of that wall. And the gallbladder is connected to the common bile duct by the cystic duct. It has a sphincter valve which actually controls flow of bile into and out of the gallbladder. Now, gallstones. Now, this is when we start to see these small stones that are found in the gallbladder or the biliary apparatus. The risk factors for these include being female, obesity, an older individual, and Caucasian. Now, what gallstones are condensations of cholesterol or calcium and bile salts. Typically, they are asymptomatic until they get lodged in the neck of the cystic duct. This results in an inflamed gallbladder known as cholecystitis, and this is characterized by severe pain in the right hypochondriac region. Symptoms include nausea, vomiting, indigestion, bloating. Unsurprisingly, symptoms will be worse after a fatty meal, and in some situations, gallstones and the frequency may result in the surgical removal of the gallbladder. Now, keep in mind, the gallbladder does not produce bile, it stores and concentrates bile. So individuals that have their gallbladder removed, they are still producing bile, but it is not concentrated, and that will have an impact on lipid digestion. So one of the biggest lifestyle modifications that someone that has their gallbladder removed has to deal with is fat in their diet. Now, this leaves us with the last of the accessory digestive organs, and that is the pancreas. Now, previously, we addressed the endocrine function of the pancreas, and that is related to the regulation of blood glucose through insulin and glucagon. We are focusing now on the anatomically major part of the pancreas, which is an exocrine organ, and what it does, it produces pancreatic juice to assist with digestive activities. It has a wide head, which is adjacent to the duodenal curvature, a long central elongated body, which projects towards the left lateral wall, and a tail that actually tapers as it approaches the spleen. Now, if we look at the exocrine pancreas, it is going to be the acinar cells. These are modified simple cuboidal epithelial cells, and they are responsible for producing and releasing digestive enzymes. There are also cuboidal duct cells, and they're going to be secreting an alkaline bicarbonate fluid. Now, as far as pancreatic secretions, which also is referred to as pancreatic juice, these are secretions that are coming from the acinar cells and the pancreatic duct cells. It is an alkaline fluid, so please keep in mind this makes sense. The contents of chyme as it enters the duodenum is acidic. There has to be something to neutralize that, and this is one of the jobs of the alkaline fluid that's being produced by the pancreas. So it's mostly water, bicarbonate ion, but also numerous digestive enzymes. We can expect to see pancreatic amylase, which will be digesting starch, pancreatic lipase, which will be digesting triglycerides. Now notice that proteases are inactive, and remember, they have to be released in an inactive form because their role is to digest proteins once activated. So they need to be not within the pancreas when they are activated so that proteins of the pancreas do not become digested. Also, this is not something that we have addressed to a great detail, but there are nucleases, and they are involved in digestion of nucleic acids such as DNA and RNA. Now, one condition that many of you have heard that is associated with the cancer is pancreatic cancer. This is cancer specifically of the exocrine cells of the pancreas. Now, prognosis is good if there is early detection, but this is very rare. Typically, this is due to the fact that there is no screening test, and there really are no signs and symptoms in the early stages of this disease. Most people, when they are diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and it's actually discovered, it is late stage 3 or 4, and this means that there's little time for the treatment of pancreas, and when discovered at this late stage, it quite often is terminal, and it is an especially aggressive cancer. Now, symptoms that occur in the later stages include abdominal pain, loss of appetite, weight loss, and jaundice. As noted, pancreatic cancer is quite often fatal because it is detected so late, and to date, there is no real screen test to identify pancreatic cancer in its early stages. Now, this slide here is focusing on the hormones that control digestion. We have gastrin, and remember, this is secreted by G cells within the stomach, and the stimulus for release is going to be the bolus in the stomach, especially if that bolus is high in protein. It will stimulate the stomach motility and release of gastric secretions, and also it will stimulate the contraction of the pyloric sphincter. We have cholecystokinin. This is produced by the enteroendocrine cells of the small intestine. It will be stimulated for release by chyme-containing amino acids and fatty acids as it enters the small intestine. Its impact on the stomach will be to inhibit stomach motility and gastric secretions. On the gallbladder, it stimulates the release of bile. On the pancreas, it stimulates the release of enzyme-rich pancreatic juice. The hepatopancreatic sphincter will cause relaxation, and also relaxation of the ileocecal valve. Also, there is secretin, and this also is another hormone that's produced by enteroendocrine cells of the small intestine. The stimulus for release is an increase in the acidity of chyme entering the small intestine. The target of the stomach will inhibit gastric secretions and stomach motility. The liver, it causes the secretion or stimulates the secretion of alkaline solution. And within the pancreas, it is stimulating the secretion of an alkaline solution from the pancreatic ducts. And remember, this alkaline solution is to neutralize the acidic chyme that is entering the duodenum from the stomach.